Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the Self Care Summit. My name is Aditi. I'm the host of the summit, and I'm so excited for you to be here. We have 9 experts over these next 3 days sharing their journeys and sharing helpful tools to help you in your self care journey. Every time we do this, we have a different topic, and this month's topic is shadow work. If you haven't heard of shadow work before, you're definitely going to be enlightened by all the things that you can learn about how you can use shadow work to help you in your life in so many different ways. And we're going to be talking all about it today. And if you want to get these recordings, if you want to be part of this live event, make sure to sign up at adithicreative.com/summit. And we are also streaming live on facebook.com/Aditi Creative. We would love if you would share this out on your profile and get this out to as many people as possible. I know for me, shadow work has saved me in moments where I have been in really, really dark places where I didn't know how I would ever get out of it. And shadow work truly saved my life. So I'm really excited to get into this conversation and talk to all the fabulous people we have today. Let's get into it, guys. I'm going to bring in the speakers. Let's go. Hi, guys. All right. We have Kevin, we have Jasmine, we have Yana, and we have Jamad. So let's go ahead. We are going to start with introductions. I would love for all of you guys to share who you are and what your connection is to this topic of shadow work. And Kevin, I'm going to pass it on to you first. Go for it.
Hi, my name is Dr. Kevin Weiss. I'm a physician and healer, so I largely work with a population of people that have complex chronic illness, such as Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease, and autoimmune issues, and so on and so forth. And the connection to shadow work is that oftentimes, in order for these people to fully heal, what I found was that they would have to engage in shadow work in order for them to heal, that there would be no amount of physical, chemical, interventions that would shift them out of these states until they would engage in this work. So it's been kind of a 10-year journey of me of getting my hands wet.
So I'll jump in next. I am Jasmine, also known as the Healing One, owner of I Am Healing One LLC. I'm a health and wellness expert. And for the past 20 years, I have been working with catastrophic injuries, mental health, addiction, you name it. I have probably worked with it. And what I specifically do is to help my clients to figure out how to thrive in every area of life by merging the everyday things and the spiritual together to create the life they truly desire.
Hey there, everyone. I'll go next. My name is Yana Dashevsky, and I'm a general life coach. I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia, but I love to travel all over the world. And I've spent a lot of time around the world actually experiencing different spirits, culture, people. I lived in Jerusalem, I've lived in Maui. And one of the things that I found that no matter what kind of ideology you're coming from, whether it's mindset coaching or whether it's a religious perspective in Jerusalem or whether it's a cultural perspective in Hawaii, the parts of us that we often tend to resist some of our greatest gifts and some of our greatest treasures. And so what I do now as a general life coach is I really do help people thrive by letting them experience the power of their shadow. And I'm really looking forward to these next 3 days so we can really unwind that together. That being said, I'll pass the mic over to Jamad. So happy to have you all. Thank you for having.
Hey everybody, I'm Jamad, the moderator here, but just so you can learn a little bit about me, I am the Mystic Coach. I am an oracle, I am a soul therapist and a life purpose coach, and I really just help people get in alignment, understanding what's going on with their vending machine of life, because so many things be coming at them and they need a snack to help get them by. And I also help them get really much so in depth with so they can start guiding themselves without, the need of a guru, right? So I said all that to say what connects me to this work is I heard a really great guru named Debbie Ford. She said, and I quote, well, I won't quote her, okay? But I would say I had seen Debbie Ford probably about 6 years ago, and she said some stuff to me that sounded like, hey, if you don't love yourself, you're gonna sabotage yourself. And if you don't love yourself, you're not going to know your true purpose here. And if you don't love yourself, you're going to miss out on your real powerful gifts. So I was sitting here like, okay, well, how I love myself? And she was like, you got to learn about the shadow. So, I was like, let me get into this because my shadow must got some good shit going on. Can I say that? My shadow must got some good stuff going on. So I said all that to say that's my connection with the work. And I'm great and happy to be here. Aditi, you want me to roll into it?
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your introductions. And Jamad, I love that you brought up Debbie Ford because, oh my God, she is just the queen of shadow work. And since you guys just heard her, like definitely check out her work. So good. And now, yes, Jamad is going to be our moderator today, and I'm going to pass it on to you. Go for it.
Okay, so I am still in my own world doing shadow work, and I think I'm going to be doing it for a long time. So I'm going to ask y'all about it so I can learn and so we all can learn to have a great time because I think it's going to be one of the best summit days this week for sure. So the first question I do want to ask is, Kevin, what is shadow work to you? Okay, because everybody probably will see it differently. I'm gonna ask the rest of y'all this too, but I want to know, like, what is shadow work to you, and who do you feel should actually engage in it, or who's ready for it?
So shadow work for me is honestly just the merging of all parts of yourself. I think a lot of times people get tripped up on the word shadow and they think that it has to be this dark, painful filled place where crying ourselves to sleep every night, like they show in the movies and all these dramatic, graphics on social media today. But for me, it's this beautiful, eclectic, messy space of being that just allows you to figure out what is that light? What is the thing that guides you and motivates you and inspires you to go? And what is that pain that you're hiding from, or that trauma that you experienced, or that wound that you had that maybe feels ugly and messy? Figuring out how to merge all of those things together to get the most beautiful experience of life that you can. And I think that every single person in a human body needs to be doing it, because that's how you heal generational trauma. That's how you heal financial traumas, emotional traumas, relationship conflicts. There's nothing that you can't use to address it. It's just finding what works. And there's no one tool or no one modality, no one right way or wrong way to do it. It's just diving in, getting messy, asking the uncomfortable questions, being willing to shed a tear, talking through it, healing through it in whatever way works, because cultural, community, religious, spiritual, there are so many different ways. So it's all about diving in and just having fun with it.
I totally agree with that, Jasmine. I'm so sorry. I'm from Arkansas and I'm kind of country, y'all. And low key, I said Kevin at first, but I'm so glad you chimed in because that's so important. Because I do want people to pay attention that shadow work is something that you can dive into, but you got to be ready and willing, because you know what, you'll be really breaking some heavy generational stuff. And
it's
that
messy.
brings, it's messy. It brings up a lot of messy emotions. So I'm with you on that. It's like Kevin. But I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I thought you said my name. I apologize. The volume is throwing me off.
I'm so sorry.
We're all gonna take our turn. It's all good.
The same question, Kevin. I'm sorry, y'all.
Yeah. So for me, shadow work is dealing with those, I would say, making the unconscious part of ourselves conscious. And usually it's the part of ourselves that are causing trouble. because the part of ourselves that are working out well, we don't have to put a whole lot of effort there to get them to work well. And I think that what you're saying about the readiness is very important. People go through shadow work on many different levels. Sometimes it can be anywhere from very, very light stuff to extreme, and you can have kind of everything in between. And I think both of you pointed out something also very important, that this work is, I feel like in a lot of new agey crowds, the whole spiritual path of evolution is sold as if, you're going to show up and you're going to have unicorns prancing through the sky, and they're going to be pooping out rainbows, and it's going to be one big awesome thing. And, I think for a lot of people, when they get initiated on the path, maybe you do get a couple months or a year like that. It's it seems a little different for everyone, but that seems to be the pattern that I've seen flush out. But then it seems like, whoever, the universe or whatever you want to call it, at some point it's going to say, now it's time to sit down and get to work. And my own personal experience with it, I can actually talk about it publicly now. I'm coming up, like Aditi uses the language of dark nights. It got her, the shadow work got her through dark nights. And I'm coming up on, in a month, the 10-year anniversary of when I got initiated into what I call the dark night of the soul. And to say that this was excruciating would be the biggest understatement ever. And so I was 20 and I was meditating and getting opened up, and all the Kundalini phenomena was happening, and I walked around for a year in bliss, and it was awesome. And then the universe said, sit your ass down and get to work. And so for me, what it was eventually, I didn't quite figure it out for a little while. Honestly, I was spinning for a couple of years and I had no idea what hit me. No one told me this was going to happen. I had no idea. But eventually I figured it out. I had to go through all my past lives and all my the intergenerational connections, not just with my family through this life, but through many past lives, and just clear it. And like I see what you mean, Jamad. It can take a while. And so I had resolutions like, yeah, I want to get all the way spiritually in this lifetime, and I don't really care what the consequences are. 10 years later, I would advise against such resolutions, because you might get what you ask for.
But it make you fearless down a little bit. Yeah.
You can make a lot of progress really quickly, but the reality is there's a price to pay for that progress.
The little bit of trauma, yeah. It's a lot of bit of trauma. I understand.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly, the price to pay? I'd love for you to expand on that. It's
uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. If you don't subscribe to this, for me, it's a reality. But if for people don't subscribe to the belief system that, so for me, we've come and gone from here many times. We've had many different interactions with people. We've played both sides of things. And we end up in the situations that we do. We're in front of the people we are. We have the challenges that we have. We also have, the skills and the tools that we have because of those seeds that have been planted in the past. I don't think it's random. And so if you go through the process of digging up that shadow very rapidly, we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of lifetimes. For a lot of people, just one lifetime at is that's enough. That's a lot. And so if you start going through a couple, 10 of them, 100 of them, 1,000 of them all in a rapid period, it's painful. You got all that stuff that hadn't got dealt with, and then you got to bring it up and you got to deal with it. And that's the uncomfortable thing about spiritual growth that I think, people don't get told about when they get on the path, is that, if you came in and you already did it, then hey, good for you. That's the person who's going to have a really comfortable, smooth awakening. They already did it. But for us mere mortals, it's a little different.
Well, who do you feel is shouldn't shadow work?
Sorry, say that again.
Who do you feel should engage in shadow work?
If you are really passionate about evolving spiritually and you have that fire in you and you're willing to take time and energy out of your life, because it's like a job for me. You know, it's like I got my clients, and you know, it's like I might take them through a lifetime, and sometimes it's like, you know, one lifetime will take 4, 5, 6 sessions. You never know. Like I've had some really bad ones where it took me 5 or 6 months to get through. You don't know until you open up that box. So be willing, be ready to put the time in, be willing to put the energy in. And it's a tricky thing to know how much you can take and how much you're willing to take before you get into it. I think a lot of people that do it, you know, like one of the questions that'll come later is, you know, like, how is it that you can get more depressed doing it? Well, I think now we've kind of discussed that. Yeah, you know, I see the knowing looks from all the other panelists. They're like, yeah, you're not kidding. Yeah, it's no joke.
It's no joke.
If it's
Yana,
I want to jump in though, because at a certain point when we say who should engage in shadow work, and then we talk about it as like, and trust me, I totally agreeing with everyone in the audience. Like before you really, it's almost like the Matrix, right? Like red pill, blue pill. Like, are you ready? Because you can't go backwards. Like once you see that there is this whole other world out there, like, and where Neo goes afterwards, it's not the easiest place, right? He's constantly on, he's working. But before we do that, what I want to suggest when we say who should engage in shadow work is the idea that we are all inevitably engaging in shadow work by the mere presence of our existence. And if I could take this a little bit further back, kind of, and so whatever anybody's ideas of God, spirit, source is, I'll leave that totally open to you. But something that I learned from the Kabbalah, which is kind of where I get some insights and some of my things that resonate with me very profoundly, is according to the Kabbalah, God is literally light. Source is light. And light, if we really look at the smallest elements, are just energy. And the Kabbalistic story is that prior to creation, there was just one, right? The Big Bang, one element of light, one source of light, one place where all light that ever was, that ever existed, that ever could be, was just is. And that light, that original source, is God. And within that light, you could experience absolutely everything. The greatest joy, the greatest pleasure, the greatest diversity, it's godliness, it's everything. And yet, the way the Kabbalah describes it is, imagine yourself sitting at a beautiful dinner party where you have this beautiful meal and all the servings and all the most gorgeous dishes and the most beautiful table, and it's set for delight and joy, and yet you're alone at the dinner party. And is that as pleasurable as inviting all of your friends and seeing them witness your dinner party, what you've created, what is going on within this light source? And so the Kabbalah teaches that really what happened was that God too has desires, and God desired to share the beauty of this light with itself, because there's nothing but light. But in order to do that, God had to create a place that was dark, concealed, where light was concealed, and then very systematically introduce light in the way which it could be received into this concealed place. Now, what the Kabbalah says happened that during this transmission, as the light descended, because of the radical difference of a concealed place where there's total darkness and light, what happened to the light is that it naturally fragmented. It split apart, and all of these different sparks of light were spread out throughout this darkness. And then this light created itself as human beings, as all of us, as trees, as land, as diversity, as water, as everything in nature. It spread itself into energy forms that were physical. And within these physical energy forms are trapped these sparks of light. And our journey throughout this world is to almost be like miners, to find experiences, to find relationships, to meet each other, to do good things for the world. And as we do so, we reveal godliness in this world, where really you could wake up and say, oh my gosh, there is no God. It's dark, it doesn't exist. But yet through conversations like this and through our own shadow work, that is where we mine for these sparks of light. And when we find them, the shadow disappears as we work through it, and the spark gets to almost be revived into this world of darkness through an invitation rather than through force. And so on that end, to me, inevitably, when we deny inviting these sparks, opening it up, joining the evolution that we've created ourselves into, that's when we experience a lot of discomfort in our lives. When we're feel or called to do something, to go with our mission, to go with what we want to experience in this world, our unique potential, and yet we resist. We say we're not comfortable, we're too insecure, we're not good enough, we're never going to achieve or accomplish that. It's that light calling you, but yet you're denying your own ability to go mine for your aspect of this world, for your place in this world. And when we do that, we experience deep pain, deep depression, deep unsatisfaction. And even if we go our whole lives avoiding going to the light, we will still be in this shadow. We will still inevitably find ourselves, oh, I want to go, I want, and so that never disappears, that calling never disappears. So as difficult as it may be sometimes, what I want to say on the other hand is when you start doing the work, it is the most profound, most beautiful, most elevating, most uplifting. And it actually is the one thing that I've found that makes the difficult times worthwhile. The difficult times somewhat understandable, somewhat enjoyable, somewhat worthwhile, because in that process, we are revealing light, godliness, and source energy into this world with ourselves, becoming a part of creation. And if that's hard, it's worth it, to me at least.
So are you really just saying you find that shadow work is a great path to enlightenment? And because I'm really understanding what you're putting down with the Kabbalah. You know, I've been really studying. So I really can understand how you are using this as a gateway tool into helping other people take in more light to process their shadow work. Mm-hmm.
And become the source of that light in this world, right? That is the idea with a person who has done their shadow work or walking around in this world, and you don't know what it is, but they walk into the room and they light the place up. People from the other corner who are feeling sad or dissatisfied with their day are like, who's that? Right away, it's their light. It's the light, it's the energy. So as you do your shadow work, you literally, yes.
Flow. You do. I'm still working on mine. So
we all are. It's right. It's and that's what the other thing that I want to kind of lead into is it's a process, right?
Well, I do want to say though, I did want to take it over back to Jasmine, because I know that you had kind of talked to us really quickly, and you know, and we got to get a lot of expressions from Kevin and Yana, because you know, I'm pronouncing it right? Okay, I'm sorry. But I did want to get to, because you know, I see how they have applied it really hard to their work, you know, and I want to hear from you how shadow work changing, you know, how does it change our lives, and how have you seen it change your life or your clients' lives?
And I actually want to chime in on some of what Yana was saying as far as, and what Kevin was saying. It can be extremely painful. I will wholeheartedly agree. There are moments when it looks like the movies and you're crying yourself to sleep and you don't want to wake up in the morning and you just say, take me, I'm done. And you want to throw shit at the wall and, you know, have a meltdown, right? But there are so many beautiful moments. And so to offer a little bit of contrast to that, I have found, and I applied my shadow work by being my darkness. And so, because a lot of people will say they feel the light when you walk in the room. Yes, I'm actually that person. So people tell me that all the time. When you walk in, it just felt amazing, or it brightened up, or, you know, whatever. But that happens because I am actually able to embrace my shadow and my darkness because of that power that sits there for me. And so one of the things that I love to tell people is figure out where it resonates for you. So for example, I can identify with Kevin when he said it was about a 10-year period. I felt that in my soul because there was a period of time where it just felt like nothing would go right. You know, I tried, I prayed, I worshiped, I left Christianity and embraced spirituality. And I did all these things because that was my path. And that's what I needed to do. But in doing all of those things, it didn't get better. And it was still painful because I was trying to do it the way that everybody said it should be done. Embrace the light, you know, do all the things and meditate and pray. But my healing actually came when I embraced my rage. My healing actually came when I tapped into that anger, because I can use gratitude just as an example, because everybody loves to talk about manifesting, right? I can use gratitude to manifest, and it's extremely powerful for me, but I get more result quicker and more powerfully when I use my rage to manifest, because that is the energy that feels more home, quote unquote, if that makes sense. And I want to make sure that I say that because I know there are a lot of people that can identify with that. So shadow work for me, the realization in my journey came when it wasn't about figuring out how to heal my shadow so that I could embrace the light. My power came when I figured out how to exist in my shadow and use it on a day-to-day basis. And so to translate that for some other people that love astrology and things like that, I'm a fire sign because I'm a Sagittarius. So I couldn't really use light. I had to use fire, which consumes and destroys. And yes, it rebuilds and, you know, it does all those things. But that's really where the shadow got powerful for me, when I got pissed off and angry enough. And I was able to figure out how to use all those things to start making the changes. So that's where the chronic illness is healed for me. And with my clients, just to give a little background, I started out in wellness with catastrophic injuries. So paraplegics, quadriplegics, stroke survivors, brain injuries, things of that nature. And then I broadened into physical training, and then, you know, massage therapy and coaching, got my degrees in counseling. So I've actually run the gamut. And the same thing that I saw in myself was what I saw in a lot of my clients and patients through the years, was that typically when people talk about spirituality, they're talking about embrace the light and the meditating and the Kundalini energy, the yoga, and all these things to create all this ease and all this bliss. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And it works. But a lot of my clientele were drawn to me because like attracts like. Energy is energy, right? So I attracted in a lot of people that had a similar path. And I started teaching them, excuse my language, y'all, but fuck the lights. Let's go into this darkness and unpack it and figure out how to thrive there, like a lotus flower, if you will.
So if I can ask you a question, and then I'm gonna spin it off to everybody else though.
Yeah.
So you were talking about this rage, okay? And you get stuff done. Now, I don't want to confuse the people that's listening, because I don't want them to think you just tearing stuff up all the time. You know, it's doing. Could you please could we talk about shadow triggers?
Yes.
And, you know, and what the triggers, you know, are, how they show up, and how people can work with them, if that makes sense. Like, how can people work with this triggering that's going on?
So there's a difference. Let me say it this way. What I have learned is there's a difference in you being triggered and something pissing you off or causing you to feel hurt or angry because somebody hurt your feelings or did something to you, whatever. And being able to channel it into what I like to call righteous anger or righteous rage. So for example, I remember a situation a long time ago where I had a who I thought was a best friend, and they were dragging me, honey. It was a whole lot of things going on. And I was so hurt. You know, I got into victim space with my anger. And here's the difference. Because that victim space of anger says they triggered me, they hurt my feelings, and I want to tear some stuff up and act out and have a tantrum, but I'm stuck in it. It's a never-ending cycle of my feelings being hurt, rage, feelings being hurt, rage, feelings being hurt, rage, but you're not doing anything with it. What I started learning how to do was saying, okay, first of all, let me figure out what this is triggering in me. Is it insecurity? Is it fear? What is this causing me to feel that I don't want to feel that's coming out as this anger? And then once I can identify what it's triggering in me, what my soul, my spirit, my psyche is saying I need to give some attention, I give that part of my self-love to say, okay, right now we're safe. Let's feel this thing that we need to feel and make our way through it step by step so that we can identify what this is and how to utilize this in healing or make that positive change. And then once I've done that, I then learned how to say, now that anger that I felt is still actually positive energy because I can utilize it as fuel. So it's not needless or unnecessary or useless. It can be fuel, like gas in the car. It's the difference between saying, I'm going to choose from Shell gas station or Walmart, but they're all gas. So I'm going to use this fuel as my process. Does that make sense?
It helps with your awareness of things.
Yes.
Yes, I'm totally picking up on it.
Yeah.
Anna, y'all want to chime in on this
Yeah.
trigger?
I
The
actually
triggers.
I love what you said about the victim mentality, because I think it's so easy to go there. And
Yes.
and especially when you're in a group of people, you'll always have people who will have your back and say, yeah, screw them. What? And they give you maybe the gas that's not propelling you in the way that you want to go.
Right.
But I do think, that's part of the human experience. If you're there, that's okay too, if you can accept that this is just where you're at right now. But when you're ready to move out of that victim mentality, that's where the power is. And I can share a
Yeah.
story where there was this one time on Thanksgiving a few years ago where someone really triggered me, a family member, and things they were saying to me. I felt like they were interrogating me about my life and my choices and things like that. And it completely ruined my mood before Thanksgiving actually was happening. It was the night before Thanksgiving. And it was a perfect opportunity to completely ruin my entire weekend. And it was definitely there. I couldn't sleep that night. I was up all night thinking about all these things this person said to me. I was totally feeling like a victim. I was like, how dare they? Why can't they mind their own business? Like all the things, right? But I really had to go within after a while of enough suffering. And that's another thing. Like when you're tired of being in pain, when you're tired of suffering, that's when it's time to engage in the shadow work. And I decided I'm not going to let what this person said ruin my entire Thanksgiving day. I was meeting up with people for Thanksgiving who I hadn't seen in years. And honestly, I was at such a point of rage, Jasmine, that I was ready to cut anyone who said anything that triggered me, even just a little bit. And I was like, I don't want this to be my experience, So this was me kind of taking ownership of my experience and what I wanted to have. And I love what Jasmine said too. Like, it's like, what am I making this mean? What insecurities in me is this triggering? And it was bringing up a whole can of worms. And I was like, all right, well, we don't have all the time to deal with all of that right now, but what do you want? So I asked myself, what experience do you want? And I said, well, I want to have a nice Thanksgiving and I want to enjoy my time with these people. I don't want to be angry, So I went ahead and I did some of sort of my own processing, and I kind of took ownership of, the things that I was feeling triggered by, what I was feeling hurt by. And I decided that, okay, well, some people are going to have opinions about me, but it doesn't have to ruin my Thanksgiving. They can have all the opinions they want, but I can still have the experience that I want. And I really nurtured myself and allowed myself to be angry, be sad, and all of that. And I also allowed myself to park some of it to deal with later, right? Because sometimes we don't have the time when it's an event or we're in public. And I did some things to help me. I did some journaling. I talked to a friend who helped me kind of process through it. And I showed up at that Thanksgiving and I had a great time. I didn't let that one person ruin my entire thing. And it was one of the hardest things that I had ever gone through, because I easily get emotionally triggered and I easily carry that weight along with me. So I think that was one of the most powerful times that I really worked through something where I was in victim mentality, but I didn't want that victim mentality to take over my entire experience, because I knew it was going to suck if I allowed myself to be there. And I think like the power of shadow work is that it can literally change your experience of life, because imagine you showing up as a wounded person, versus you showing up as an empowered person. You're going to have completely different experiences, right? Now, although we can't make all the wounds go away, we can, when we own the wounds that we have, we can show up as an empowered person. So I think that's a little bit of a shortcut, because we feel like, man, we have so much stuff we need to heal. Where are we going to have all the time for that? But if you can own your shadow, and I love what Jasmine said, she said, I can exist in my shadow. I think that's so, so powerful. So that's what I wanted to offer, my
I was
experience.
going to say another example I want to give just to help people make sense of it. For example, I was in a really bad car accident. I was hit from behind, car totaled, caused a lot of damage to my spine and severe pain, like severe pain. I had to make a choice because it changed everything. It stopped me from running my business, stopped me from living my life. I could stay in that victim space with that traumatized anger, rightfully so, or I could utilize it and channel it to do what I needed to do, which was push myself through the rehab, the physical therapy, all the things. So I literally channeled that anger and that rage into energy, because everything is energy. When we look at science, everything is energy. So I channeled it to say, I'm tired, my body hurts, I'm in pain, I don't want to do this. But it became fuel. That rage was the fuel that pushed me to make those steps. And so that's what I wanted people to understand. Feel your anger, because a lot of times we shy away from it, or we think that we can't be angry if we want to be spiritual and enlightened. But anger serves its purpose too.
So I did want to, y'all have inspired so many thoughts. I mean, so many thoughts where I think we may need to come on again. But I do say this. Okay, so since everybody's listening, y'all, we talking triggers, we talking all this other stuff, we talking about the shadow work. How do we avoid the pitfalls or some of those harder times, or those depressing times, or those shutdown times, or how shadow work can kind of cause a negative reaction in ourselves? And we need these tools that y'all are talking about, or that we may discuss right after this. But like, can y'all kind of touch on that for me, Kevin, Yana, Jasmine, somebody? Yes.
I would love to jump in on this question, because when I was kind of thinking, I was like, I want to answer this one. So I remember when I had my kind of, and by the way, I just want to round what Jasmine and Aditi have been saying about the choice. I think that's a beautiful thing to notice about shadow work, right? First step is awareness, noticing, hey, I'm in anger, right? But the idea is, do I want to resist the anger? Do I want to say, no, this shouldn't be here. I shouldn't exist like this. I should be nice, peaceful, cozy, go to the light. Or do I want to choose to be in this anger? And then do I want to choose to be in this anger powerfully, or do I want to choose to feel it all and say, no, today's not an appropriate day for anger. Let me pick that up again tomorrow, right? That's the power. But in terms of pitfalls, what's going to happen when you start doing this and you get really good and you get tuned in, and kind of like what Kevin was saying at the beginning, you have this Kundalini awakening, and sometimes it lasts for people for a month, 2 months. So I remember when mine happened, I was literally on cloud 9 for about 3 weeks in a whole other dimension, manifesting anything and everything for it was just, I can go into that whole story differently. And I remember when the pitfall happened, when it fell, I had a friend come over and she was visiting me and she said, I don't know what has been going on with you for the last 3 weeks, but you're literally you're glowing, you're shining, something is, I can't feel whatever. And I said to her the magic words, I think I figured it out. And as soon as that happened, I felt the whole whoosh of energy, everything that's been culminating for the last 3 weeks, just like right out of my foundation, out of my chakras, in my root, just boom, bye, you lost it. Forget you. Who do you think you are? You have never figured it out. As soon as you think you figured it out, there's going to be another layer that unfolds, and that's your new shadow. And so for me, it was such a beautiful lesson learned, because all these manifestations, all this high holy energy that I was on, literally like my genie disappeared, gone. Somebody stole it, right? And then since that point, literally by dispelling this notion of I've ever figured it out and going into the journey, I'm learning how to bring it back and back, but not to this place where it was like, whoa, this is so big and outside of me and this beautiful Kundalini awakening. But in every moment, how do I know to awaken myself, to tap into myself? What kind of anger do I want to have today? Do I want to even have this anger, right? And that has been such an integrative process. It takes slower. It's not this whole high holy horse, but now there's no taking it away from me. There's no manifestations that are going to magically disappear because I know how to do it systematically every day. So if you're ever to that point where like, I got this, I figured it out, you got a lot of work to do, bud. Personal experience.
When I tell you, I was so glad I was muted because I hollered. Because baby, that I figured it out, F it all up. Okay, once you, it's like, oh, a layer fell off. And you was like, I feel like I'm next to Jesus now. I'm doing this thing, and then boom, you back into some more shadow work. Just like, Lord, how long? How long? Like that is hilarious. But I think it's like we're just here to become more aware of the shadow, because the shadow is us. And the more we learn about ourselves, the more powerful we get. So, but like it is a lot. I'm so glad you touched on that. But Jasmine, anybody, Yana, I'm sorry. Was there something else you wanted to? I keep muting
I
myself.
think you were on mute for a second, so I just wanted to mention, but yeah, no, Kevin, Jasmine, and DT, your turn. I've talked enough.
I'll jump in and share a quick tip. I think oftentimes when people dive into shadow work, we are not fully prepared for the depth and range of the emotions that we're gonna feel, because again, we think it's gonna be all love, light, unicorns pooping rainbows, or it's gonna be a shit show all the time. But there's so much in between, and we go back and forth on the spectrum. And so the biggest tip and tool that I advise is get some accountability partners. Journaling is great. Having your modalities, energy healing, your coaches, your therapists, all those things are powerful, but get you a personal accountability partner, if at all possible, somebody that you trust, because you're not always going to start off with your coach or your therapist or your healer telling them your deepest, darkest secrets. You need somebody that knows you already, that you can be raw, naked, vulnerable with. So when those things hit, you can cry, you can vent, you can rage, you can talk through it with them as you're working with the professionals, but the safe person that you could just bear it all,
Because I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's a lot of psychological stuff that starts taking with you as you do shadow work, that you be like, I need meditation, I need prayer, I need a friend, I need some family, and then all that stuff be feeling like it be rejecting you because because you're so emotional, so it could be a whole lot going on. I didn't want to, did you want to say something about that? Because
no, you're really good. And I want to make sure to say this, somebody that's hopefully non-judgmental. And that's why I said a safe person, because you're going to feel things that are not going to make sense. You're going to feel things that may not line up with your cultural beliefs or your spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, community, family, etc. And so you need that person that you can just bear it all and blurt it out, and they're going to help you just talk through it and not try to change your mind or force you to think or feel a certain way.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of really hitting the nail on the head. I kind of feel guided to kind of just tie some of these things together and kind of like it's funny. My practice is called systematic healing. So I forgot who was talking about dealing with it systematically. It was Yana. Yeah, she was talking about dealing with it systematically. And it's interesting. We got a lot of very super intuitive people in this group right here. But the interesting thing is, from what I've observed, is you don't have to be a super psychic to see this playing out. It can be helpful on deeper levels, certainly, but you don't have to be super intuitive to see this playing out. So everyone's walking around, for the most part, getting triggered all day long, unless you're enlightened. The rest of us are getting triggered all day long. And Jasmine was pointing out that, like, basically your shit is your fuel. And I think it's such a great reframe, because most people are getting triggered by their shit. And then, well, I don't want to, unconsciously, I don't want to deal with that. So alcohol, television, sex, whatever. Not that any of these things are bad in themselves, but that's, people will drown themselves in something else. And so then this comes to a DT's point of this, well, Yana's point first of awareness. You first become aware, oh, I'm getting triggered. And then we want this thing to pop in our minds. Oh, this is an opportunity. It's not just there to just like pummel you all day long. It's an opportunity. And then a DT's point of taking full responsibility. For me, this is juice. This is the juice, and it runs real deep. So the bitter pill that I see I have to keep swallowing, and I have to tell my clients to keep swallowing, is every situation in your life, and somehow, some way, unconsciously or consciously, you have created it. Not anyone else. You have. I have. It's a bitter pill, and people don't want to swallow it, but there's no way around it. That's it. You gotta take that medicine. You want to level up, you gotta take that medicine. That's it. Game, set, match. So the funny thing is that in taking that medicine, it's a little bitter, but it'll save you a lot more pain that Yana was talking about. Like you wanna run away from that, you're gonna get a lot more pain. So I want us to, from earlier, the whole thing is not all a shit show. I mean, it can be at moments, but I just, from my side, I just want to say, if you get into this, understand this can happen. I feel like a lot of people aren't upfront about that. But yeah, I've had moments, blissed out of my mind too. It's a roller coaster, like Jasmine said. So it's becoming aware that you're triggered, understanding that we're fully responsible and no one else is going to shift it but us. Healers, professionals, friends, they can all be a support for sure, and they're needed. But ultimately, we have to take that responsibility. And then what is that? And then after you get there, you got to take the action to then flip it. So this is where things get complex. Sometimes, for me, the deepest part of that is going in and seeing, okay, what seeds did I carry over from my past life that have created this now? This seed in my mind that causes me to react this way unconsciously. Because two different people could be in the same situation, and one person feels great about it and the other one feels terrible. And I think, with the triggering, one of the big things for all of us to be on alert for, even if you do nothing else with it, is to be aware of the things that triggered you out of proportion to the event. Otherwise, it's like if you step out in the street and you almost get hit by a car, of course your alarm system is going to go off. But that doesn't mean you got to start going and looking at all your past lives that brought you to that moment. But more those core relationships, like the energies, you all know that the energies are different on the planet now. Like, you want to get enlightened now, like, I don't think you got to go to a monastery. You don't got to go sit up in the Himalayas in a cave. Just get married. For real.
Say that one more time.
You don't need to go. Like, you want to evolve. You want to get enlightened. You don't have to sit in a cave somewhere. You don't have to like put on some robes and become a celibate. Just get married.
It's
Okay.
so funny that you, because actually, according to the Kabbalah, that's the whole idea, is that light fragments into two, and in a way it's like a soul connection, a soul match. And so in love relationships, it's actually where we're willing to do the most shadow work naturally and intrinsically and intuitively. I won't look at your bad side. Let's all do right. Or we really get at each other, but we're still going to stay and stick around and we're not leaving each other. So literally, like the Kabbalah, that's why when it gets all the way down to how Jews practice, it's like, get married as soon as possible. That's where all your work is. Like, you don't have to go to fancy dancy school. Like, get married first, be married, have some kids. And at 40 years old, then you can start studying Kabbalah because you did the work. So very interesting that you say that.
Okay. So I know we have just a second. And I really wanted to ask this because, like, it's so much I want to ask y'all. Wow, it's so much I really want to ask y'all. But what do y'all feel is the best tool? Not best tool, maybe the best way for someone to start beginning into shadow work? Maybe some questions they can start asking themselves, or some processes they can start doing, like something that they can start easing themselves into it and then calling y'all. Because once their psychological stuff start, they need a coach probably. Y'all the best coaches I can see, But
I would say the top 5 things that I recommend to most of my clients have been the questions of who am I? That sounds so simple. And most people will start to identify, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm a restaurant owner, I'm a bar owner, all the things or the titles, but they have no idea who they intrinsically or innately are, what they're here for, purpose, intention, etc. And so that's the first question is, who am I? Second question is, what am I afraid of? The third question is, why am I afraid of that? Because a lot of times we take on fears that have nothing to do with what we would actually be afraid of. It's all the shit that's been passed down from our ancestors, our generational lineage, our parents, because they do the best that they can, but most times they're operating out of trauma. The fourth thing is, what do I want here? Because a lot of us focus on what we come here to do for other people. But I always tell my clients, that's great, figure that out, but also ask yourself, what are you here to get and receive? Because that is also part of your purpose, and it's just as powerful. And the last question is, what do I need while I'm here? Because again, we focus on what can I give? How can I help, be of service? All the light, beautiful, airy fairy things, but it's good to be selfish. Self-care, self-love, self-fulfilling. We have to redirect it back. And so even though those aren't hard questions, once you really sit down and start to think about them, I've had clients that it took months for them to figure those things out, because sometimes we are so disconnected from ourselves and who we are because we've taken on the role of being everything for everyone. So I always recommend getting a journal first and foremost and asking those questions rather, and then moving on to determine what your next steps are, who you need to work with, and how you need to strategize to get through your shadow work.
I love what Jasmine said. Those questions are amazing. And to add on to that too, I think what's really helpful to start diving into it is notice when you're triggered. I find that when you're triggered, that is your entry point, baby. That's where you can start doing the work. So if there's nothing else, just notice when you get triggered. You see somebody's social media post about something and you feel your body getting tense, be like, why is my body getting tense right now? And like being honest with yourself. And two questions to add on to what Jasmine said is, what am I making this mean? Right? Like, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And then what am I making this mean? And then another one is, what do I know to be true? Because sometimes we take what we see to be truth, but really it may not be, or it could be their truth, but not your truth. So really getting clear on, what do I know to be true? What am I making this mean? Those two questions have been so powerful for me.
Get into the facts. That's what I like to say. Like, what are the, yeah, I like that.
Exactly. All right. So go ahead, Yana, you want to add something?
I was just going to add on one little quick thing too, and I call this my coaching superpower, but really it's everyone's personal superpower. And it's a tool called radical self-love. And what I mean by radical self-love is the idea of, even like in the honeymoon phase of a relationship, even when they're being so blah, 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 we're still like, oh, I love them. Turn that around onto yourself. When you're doing shadow work, even when you're experiencing your anger, when you're frustrated with yourself, when you notice your awareness of your shadow show up, radical self-love. And it starts with your thoughts. How do you talk to yourself? What's your conversation in your mind about the shadow work? When you start answering these questions and you're not satisfied with your answers, as soon as you start judging yourself, it shouldn't be this way, it's not okay, you're fighting with your own partner. It's never going to work for you. And it's going to make the shadow work so much more difficult. So when you tap in and start doing the work, do it with a safety net of radical self-love. I'm going to go to dark places. I'm going to witness behaviors I don't like. I'm going to take responsibility. All of this is going to be really hard. That's okay. I'm going to talk to myself in the nicest, kindest, most loving way through that process. Very, very important. Just wanted to leave that too.
So freaking powerful. Oh, this has been so good. I think we can probably talk for hours and hours about this. Maybe one day we'll have an in-person retreat. That would be fun. Yeah. All right. So as we're wrapping up, don't leave yet, because we're going to have closing statements at the end, which are going to be really, really powerful. But first, I would love for everybody to share where people can find them, if anyone would like to get in touch with you, and anything else you want to share. So I'm going to start start with Jamad, and then you guys can just go from there.
Well, hey, I love y'all. You can go to my Instagram at Mystic Jamad, or you can go to my website, themysticjamad.com. And right now, I'm even offering soul conscious therapy for like $77. It's the cheapest offer I have. So you can sit with me, and so we can get you in touch with your guru, the inner guidance, the system that's going to help guide you through a lot of this shadow work. So I wanted to say all that, tune in with me, keep up with me. I'm a great person to know.
Anyone else? Go for it.
So the website would be iamhealingone.org. iamhealingone.org. You can always connect with us there or look on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. with I Am Healing One, and find us on all the places to be in these social media streets. And right now, we actually are working on our I Empower Womb Healing Retreat for men and women. It is a virtual edition because it's still crazy outside, y'all. So you can find us there at thepowerofwombhealing.com. It is a free event or gift to you because we know the last year and a half has been a shit show. So we're all in our shadow work knee deep right now. So check us out at either one of those websites, connect with us on social media, and let us help support you.
So my name is Yana Dashevsky, and y'all can find me on all the social medias at Yana Dashevsky or my website, yanadashevskycoaching.com. One thing I believe to be true and really powerful about shadow work is making sure you have a good community when you're doing it. And I believe that really all of us are inevitably doing it. So I used to work with just clients one-on-one. And just this past year, I really wanted to create a space where people can come in, have access to this work, and have mentorship through this work. So I have a group coaching program. It's only $250. It's called Integrate, and it's really where we learn from awareness to actually working through your emotional body, to how to set goals, given empowering yourself through your shadow. And the best part about it is that with that $250 entry fee for the next year, you're welcome and invited to group coaching, which we do weekly. And so you have a community of folks that we're coming together every single week, and you have the support system and you've got a coach through it. So that's on yanadashevskycoaching.com, or find me on social and ask me more questions about that.
All right, my name is Dr. Kevin Weiss. You can find me on systematic-healing.com. Again, I work largely with the people that are having chronic health challenges, but also walk them through the shadow work to kind of hasten the evolution. If you can go to the contact part of the website. If you type in Summit on it, I'll give you $100 credit towards your first session with me.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. And my name is Aditi. I'm the author of the upcoming book, The Self-Care Habit, which is all about learning tools to transform your stress with simple self-care practices. And my book is available for pre-order right now. My Instagram is Aditi Creative, and the link is in my bio for that. I'm only 6 books away from hitting 50 books ordered. So I would love for you guys to help me cross that, because this work has literally saved my life. And I decided in those dark moments, if I get to the other side, I'm going to help other people get here too. And that's what this book is all about. So I would love for you guys to pre-order your copy, and that's it. So thank you guys so much. So now let's do, and I'll also put the link. We can also put our links in the comments, and I'll put them out there. So let's do our wrap up now. So I would love to hear if everyone can share one message to someone who is drowning in their shadow right now. What is one thing that you would like to tell them?
Love yourself first. You have to love yourself first to get anything done in this world. That's a quote from Lucille Ball. Put yourself first. Make yourself a priority. If you loved yourself first right now, what would your life really look like as you're going through this time period? So love yourself first, please. That's all I got.
I would say embrace the power of your pain. Use it as fuel. You know, energy never dies, it just simply shifts and goes somewhere else to serve a purpose. So instead of running from it, that's the purpose of shadow work. Face it, embrace it, feel your way through it, and use that as power, because we're all powerful beings. There's nothing outside of us that can replicate the power that we already have inside of us. Use the anger, use the rage, use the darkness just as much, just as often, just as purposefully and as powerfully as you use your light, and figure out how to merge them together to create that beautiful experience that you desire.
Yeah, well, I think language is so beautiful, and I want to kind of take this question and idea and really highlight this word drowning and use the metaphor, right? So if you're really drowning, like Kevin was speaking at the beginning of our talk about, in that dark night of the soul moment, when you're drowning, the biggest thing you need is your breath. So when you're really in those moments and it is the toughest, most hardest, and you can't think of anything and you're truly drowning, use your breath. It is your most powerful tool. Just deep breaths in, counting your breaths, really allowing your breathing to allow your body to relax just a touch, just enough to get above the water to scream, to help, to wave your hands and reach out to a lifeguard. Because when you're drowning, you don't have to do it alone. Reach out to a friend, call for help, call one of the coaches on this stage, DM us. Let us get you. We've got you. Let us swim you back to shore. And then when you catch your breath, when you're feeling a little bit revived, relaxed, relieved, then we'll do the work. But at the beginning, if you're drowning, just breathe. And as soon as you can, save enough energy to call out for help. And that's really what you do when you're drowning. Don't worry about any of the other stuff we talked about.
Know that it will pass. Nothing's forever. It's hard to hear that when you're drowning, but it's the truth.
And I want to say that you are not alone. And that's why we're all here today sharing this information. And you'll meet parts of you that you have never met before in this place. And make sure to up your self care by 1,000%, because nothing matters more right now than caring for your spirit. All right. Thank you guys so much for this beautiful, beautiful conversation. I'm so honored to be in this space with all of you. Again, if you guys would like to have the recordings, make sure to sign up at adithicreative.com/summit and be able to connect with all these beautiful people here. We still have 2 more days. This is just the beginning. So we hope you join us for the next 2 events at the same time. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.